Hello, family. Our movie begins with a doctor named Timo performing surgery on a patient alongside his colleagues in the operating room. When a doctor named Ada arrives, she informs Timo that a girl has been admitted to the hospital. It was a terrible accident. And I think that girl is your daughter, Angela. When Timo hears this, he rushes to the operation theater and discovers that the girl who has been in an accident is actually his daughter, Angela. When Timo sees this, he gets quite fond of it, and such a condition of his daughter is not seen by him. After a while, Timo's colleagues inform him that Angela's brain is severely damaged and that she can only be rescued by surgery. Timo orders his colleagues to perform Angela's surgery because he is unable to do so, seeing the state of his daughter. After hearing this, Ada leaves with her colleagues to perform Angela's surgery. But Timo remains outside, hoping for his daughter's life. When Timo looked out the hospital window after a while, it was pouring heavily. During this moment, a young woman emerges from the hospital and sits in the middle of the road in the pouring rain. That girl was wearing red heels, and Timo becomes very nervous when he sees the hills, presenting a scene from Timo flashback from 15 years ago in which Timo was traveling to a tiny community for employment. However, the car breaks down in the middle of his trip. He now requires the services of a mechanic, so he goes to a local cafe to inquire about the mechanic, where he meets Natalia. When Natalia learns of Timo's predicament, she invites him to accompany him to the local garage. They eventually arrive at the mechanic's service. However, because the store was closed at the time, Timo inquired about the phone booth so that he might call his wife and inform her of this. Natalie claims there are no pay phones nearby, so she can stroll to her house and call from there. Timo concurs as well. Then he goes to Natalie's home and telephones his wife. However, his wife does not answer the phone. After a while, Timo walks to a neighboring restaurant and begins drinking a lot of alcohol because it was summer at the time. As a result, Timo becomes inebriated extremely rapidly. Now, unable to stop himself owing to the rain, Timo goes to Natalie's home and forces her. It is cut even after Natalie's refusal is apparent. The next day, we see Timo talking to his wife Elsa. We can know from both of them that Elsa adores Timo, but she is unable to gratify him in some way. As a result, Timo was forced to do this with Natalie. After a few days, Timo returns to meet Natalie and he apologizes for his behavior, claiming that he was drunk at that time. As a result, listening to Natalie also forgives him. At the same time, we view Natalie and realize that she, like Timo, was doing all of this. Timo also realizes that as the days pass, he becomes addicted to Natalie. Then he'd go to Natalie's home to spend time with her, but Natalie was having a great time. The cycle then continues for several days. Timo was about to drop Natalie off at his place one day when Natalie's health began to deteriorate. When Timo notices this, he rushes her to his hospital. However, he learns that Natalie is pregnant. Actually, it's about it. Natalie knew as well, but she was never going to tell Timo about it because she didn't want Timo's marriage to be wrecked. As a result, Timo begins taking extra precautions as soon as he learns about Natalie's pregnancy. He calls her frequently, brings her shopping, and does everything he can to make her happy. One day while Natalie and Timo were discussing, Natalie recalls going to the mall as a child and falling in love with a t-shirt but being unable to afford it. However, salespeople continued to ask her to try on the t-shirt, and while she was doing so in the changing room, a man approached her and began caressing her. That individual, of course, was the same salesman. As a result, she told her that he gave her the t-shirt for free and that she should not tell anyone about it. Natalie hadn't told anyone about it before now, but she was so comfortable with Timo that she gave him the pass. This is the entire story. Timo recognizes after listening that Natalie has been through a lot since childhood, and he will not let her suffer any longer. He now chooses to inform his wife Elsa about Natalie on the same night. However, just as Timo is going to tell Elsa about Natalie in the house, Elsa informs Timo that she is pregnant. Timo does not say anything about Elsa while listening to the pregnancy, and in a way, he is stuck on both sides because both Natalie and Elsa are pregnant. Now that Timo has gotten more attention than the rest of them, he doesn't go to see Natalie for a few days. Natalie is also tired of Timo's actions, so when Natalie decides to meet Timo at the hospital while talking, Natalie believes Timo no longer likes her and is only passing time with her, so she departs in rage after a few days when Timo goes to meet Natalie, and when he arrives at his place, he notices Natalie dancing. However, a pregnant woman should not do any of these things. Timo has made a request. Natalie explains that she had an abortion performed by a local doctor because Timo was not paying attention to her. After hearing this, Timo recognizes his error and feels terrible. Natalie also tells Timo about the salesman event that she told him about. He is not a salesman. Rather, It was Timo who found out about this, and he begins to feel even worse in the following scene. And we witness Timo and Elsa shopping for the forthcoming baby after doing the same thing on their way home. When Timo notices Natalie on the opposite side of the road, Timo develops an excuse to see Natalie and sends Elsa home alone before going to meet Natalie. But Natalie had departed both before and after finding it. Timo locates Natalie. But as soon as Timo approaches her, Natalie begins hitting him because Timo has not come to meet her for several days. Despite this, she couldn't stay enraged with Timo for long. She then drove Timo to a restaurant for dinner. Natalie informs Timo that she came to his house to meet him the day she chose to get an abortion. However, he was not at home. Then she saw his wife, Elsa, gently placing her hands on her tummy, and she realized she was pregnant, so she had an abortion on the same day. Timo now goes to Natalie's house after hearing all of this. Natalie then informs him that she has sold her house to a builder and is now sleeping in a hotel. In the following scene, we observe that it is time for Elsa to be delivered, so Timo transports her to the hospital, where Elsa gives birth to a lovely daughter. Angela is her name. As a result, we can conclude that the girl who suffered an accident at the start of the movie is the genuine daughter of Elsa and Timo. Timo then proceeds to Natalie's hotel to inform her of the good news. Natalie is also overjoyed for Timo. We can comprehend Timo's conversation with Natalie better now. Is he now so in love with Natalie that he decides to abandon her in his village the same night? They both stay in a hotel. During dinner, Timo tells Natalie, "I can't live without you," so Natalie is overjoyed to hear that. "And I'll be moving to your village as well." But she quickly becomes ill. Timo brings her to his room because of this. Timo notices that Natalie's health has deteriorated and that she is in a lot of pain in her stomach. When Timo notices this, he rushes her to the hospital. When Natalie is examined, it is discovered that there is a lot of internal bleeding in Natalie's stomach, and Timo realizes that the local doctor did not correctly abort Natalie. So all of this is happening before Timo decides to undertake surgery because her condition was worsening rapidly. The surgery is then successful, and Natalie regains consciousness after a short while. But even after recovering consciousness, she was in so much pain in her stomach that she couldn't stand it, and she passes away in Timo. As a result, Timo is entirely broken, and this is why he was scared that, like Natalie, he would fall for Angela after this. Two people arrived at the hospital to take Natalie's body, as Timo had requested. After a while, we see the same red heels in Timo's hand, which he requests them to put in Natalie's coffin, but they reject it because Natalie's body has already been placed in the coffin. Timo now sobs a lot in memory of Natalie after those folks have left. Following that, we are taken to the present when the doctor, Ada, informs Timo that Angela is no longer in danger. Timo settles down and breathes more deeply as he listens. Both Timo and Elsa head inside to meet Angela. Angela remained unconscious, but she was no longer in danger. After a while, Timo goes to lay out Natalie's heels. As a result, we can deduce that he still blamed himself for Natalie's death. So he'd been wearing those heels for a long time, but he is no longer burdened by this guilt. This is how our movie ends. Leave us a comment on how you found this movie recap. See you in the next movie recap. We hope that you enjoy your time and have a good day.